Hey everyone, welcome back to another amazing episode of the Driveway Marketing Podcast. As always, I am hyper excited, but not super caffeinated because we're recording today in the afternoon. Today, I've got my good friend, colleague, and someone who I work with very closely, Joshua. Joshua, please say your last name right so I don't butcher it.
Mown hay, like freshly mown hay.
So Joshua Monge. Joshua is a fractional COO, and we have been working together for more than 2 years because, like a lot of you that are listening, it's one thing to be good at one part of your job. I happen to be good at sales. Some of you may be good at being the best painter, best carpet cleaner, best whatever in the world, and you're great at it. And then all of a sudden you get to a certain point in your business and you go, oh my God, I've got to hire people. How come they're not doing all the stuff that's in my head? Right. The joke with my team is I feel like I am Harry Potter's tears. I just need to put my tears into the Pansev so they can listen, watch my thoughts and figure out what I'm trying to say. While that's good for the movies, it's not very good for business. So Joshua, he's laughing, right? Thank you, Joshua, for being here today. I think this is a really important episode because we've been talking about marketing. We've been talking about lots of marketing stuff. But if you
Yeah,
can't fulfill your vision, you're doomed or you're not going to sleep. So,
yeah.
so
No,
anyway, so Joshua,
operations.
how did you get started in this? How did you get started in this business? Because clearly you have a very unique background. So tell us a little bit about your background and how did you end up doing fractional COO work?
Yeah, so I came to it by recommendation slash accident. So the last real job I had, I was a director of economic development for a local chamber. And I left that position February of 2020, which is a great time to make a transition.
Yeah, for COVID, great
Yeah,
job.
yeah. So I was supposed to walk into a 10 million in revenue manufacturing facility, and the money people that were bringing me in, they wanted me to basically be the number two guy because the CEO grew the business. It was a tech transfer from a food and beverage manufacturing facility. It got up to about 40 employees. Money was coming in really well, and so the CEO, young guy, started traveling, dirt biking, um, skiing, all kinds of crazy things, and broke his neck in one of his adventures. And so he was down for about 6 weeks. And the money people were like, "Hey, who's running the business?" And they're like, "I don't know. We'll figure it out." So I was supposed to walk in and be a COO to basically be the backup plan in case the CEO did finally break his neck. Um, but when the money people were bringing me in, they said, "Hey, listen, there's this COVID thing going on. So we're going to put a hold on this, but we'll get back to you in a couple weeks." And two
That
years
never happened.
never got back to me. Surprise,
Funny
surprise.
how you heard that.
Yeah. So then I had being economic development, I knew how to work on projects, and so I had some developers that wanted to work with me. And again, same thing. It was they met me, they wanted to do something. Let's just see how COVID works, and didn't work. So I was like, crap, what am I going to do? I had to bring something to the market quickly and find some work. And so I have an SEO background. I thought I could do consulting. Everyone's going online. Got that to 6 figures in 18 months. And a buddy of mine that was a fractional CFO was like, hey, you're doing really well in your business. It looks like, how did you do it? And I showed him my operations and kind of what I put together and how I got things structured. And he was like, well, based on your economic development background and what you did with your business, you should consult other people and be a fractional COO. And so this was in 2021. And so I thought, yeah. So I started putting together a little, kind of put a shingle up and put some offerings and started meeting people and trying to pitch the SEO services. But, people were needing operations help. And I would hear that. And so I was like, I'd rather help them with the operations piece and start picking up clients. And yeah, it was pretty fun. And I really enjoy it.
So two important things to think that I'm taking away from that. One is have more than one source of income. Everyone.
Definitely.
So if you think about it, if you're a carpet cleaner, you could have a real estate investment. If you're a carpenter, you could own part of a painting business, right? So there's all kinds of opportunities to do that. And the second thing is fractional help, right? So as business owners, a lot of times we find ourselves wrapped up in the I've got to do everything game, right? I'm just as guilty as the next guy. And if you are trying to 10x your business, right? If you're trying to do that, there's a couple things that have to happen. So if you guys have listened to previous episodes, listen to the episode with Jonathan Bannister and Tersh Blissett, because in both those episodes, we started talking about marketing and how it relates to home services, and it turned to this giant like mindset conversation, right? So the mindset of people, you got to give up, you have to give up control, you have to allow people to do the right things. And I can tell you because as a high performing sales and offer generator, right? That's my thing, right? That's my secret sauce. And in my head, everything is done perfectly. But the reality of it is that your team, no matter where they are, my team's remote, but no matter where they are, they have to know what to do. And they're never going to do what you expect unless you tell them how to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Especially because a lot of things are in your head and then you've communicated them, but what you've communicated isn't necessarily what is in your head. So,
Right. It's just whatever thought that comes to your mind at the moment because we are entrepreneurs and we have entrepreneur ADHD.
yeah.
That's a
Well,
story for another one, right? That's a story for another day.
yeah.
Um, but
But
even think about it. So, for me, just one of my aha moments was I can't do this by myself, right? So,
yeah.
one, I can tell you that Joshua and I are going through an operational issue that we're not going to talk about, but you have to have the right people in the right seats, right? And don't be afraid to hire slow, fire fast,
Yeah.
because there are people that are sometimes they're just hunting for a job while they're looking for another job, but you also have to look out for your best interest because your best interests are your wife, your kids, your husband, your spouse, your significant other, your partners, whatever it is. You need to take care of those, and so you need to be getting stuff done. So
Yeah. Well, and to that point, as you're growing, the team that got you here is not the team that's going to necessarily get you there. And so when you have those turnovers, you don't want that knowledge walking out the door. That person that knew the piece of the business or how to take care of that one thing that you trusted, mind wise, you gave it to them and they did everything, but they didn't write it down or they didn't document the process. So when there is a transition and something happens and walk out the door, there goes that knowledge that you had. And so now you're
yeah.
back, you're back
And
to,
one of the things that Joshua and I have been working on for the past year is we don't call it process. We're creating intellectual property, right? Because now should I acquire my business or should I sell my business? Should I acquire another business and employ that intellectual property somewhere else? Right. It's a whole lot easier to hand someone a book. It says, okay, this is how we handle inbound phone calls. This
well,
is what we do. What every time a technician shows up on site, this is exactly your script of what you do and how you do it instead of you having to individually teach them one-on-one. It's a system, right? So
and that's one of the things that I've kind of came by, I guess almost accidentally, but a CPA got super excited when he saw that I was doing process maps. And then I
CPAs
actually,
get excited. Sorry, so that was a
yeah, yeah, they did because they're like,
down joke.
well, because they were
Look at
doing
how much tax savings we may save for you. Sorry.
well, no, they were actually looking for valuation because they were trying to value the business. And when they do valuations, they go through and they say, "What documented processes do you have, and what's the proof that in the pudding? What's the proof that you can actually do this?" Because a lot of businesses, they're really great jobs, but they're not businesses. They can't run independent of the owner. And so when you have them documented, and I've had this cleared with a patent attorney, those process maps that I put together, you can actually go and copyright those and then those become assets, like you were saying. You put them in your operations binder. And so when you go to sell your business, it's here's how this thing runs without me and makes money. And you have those process maps in there, plus your documentation. You can increase your valuation by 1x or 2x when you go for that exit, if you decide
Right.
to exit.
And having just come from a conference, the first part of that conversation is having a business runs without you is the only way you're going to sell the business. Otherwise, you're just selling your truck and maybe some customers. The
Yeah,
only businesses that value, and we talked about it. I was at an event this weekend, and so they talk about 1 to 3x your earnings is what your business is worth if you are not part of your business, or if you just have a good business and you're involved but not terribly involved. If your business runs without you completely, that number could be 5 to 7x.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
this, and again, I'm sure it's not every business you're saying, but again, it depends on the niche and other stuff. But they were talking about like chiropractic. They talked about a pain management chiropractic one that started out as one guy as a chiropractic specialist who specialized in pain relief. That once he got that business to 1 million, then he got it to 2 million. He hired people to get him to that. Then he replicates. So that business, so let's just say, generate $1 million in cash flow. It was worth
Yeah.
$3 million.
Yeah.
He took on an investment partner that paid the $3 million for the business. They then took that single location, replicated across 11 locations.
Yeah.
They generated $5 million in cash flow or $6 million in cash flow. It wasn't worth 15 million. It was worth 50 million.
Yeah.
So the thing, so that those are, and by the way, those are real numbers as of the summer of 2024. So every market, every industry changes, but those were deals that were closed in Q2 of 2024 with high interest rates, with whatever else. So those were real numbers that were just shared. So having intellectual property, quote unquote, whatever that looks like, is going to help that, right? Because you think about the franchises, right? Everyone in home services competes with some kind of franchise. They
Yeah.
have quote unquote systems.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know.
what
If they're good.
that's what you're buying is a version of the IP, right? That you get to use to help
Yeah.
get the
Eh,
task done or help bring the money in. I actually had to walk away from a deal because they were like, "Oh, it's 1 million in revenue. Take a look at our PayPal. Like, here's 1 million. Here's proof that we had $1 million at one point in time." We ran the numbers, looked at the operations, everything else. The guy was getting about 100 grand for the year. So, and I was like, "So you're generating 1 million, but you're getting a paycheck of 100 grand, but then you're working how many hours a week?" And he's like, "Oh, like 80 hours a week, and there's always a fire." And
he
I was
just
like,
has a job that pays less than
"Yeah,
he's making apparently McDonald's in California wages.
hey." And I did this with an interior designer. She was at 1 million in revenue, and I was talking with her, and we kind of, how many hours a week are you working? What's your distributions? What's this look like? By the way, you're making like 425 an hour. Uh, how do you feel about that? So,
So and
it
the trick is you don't have to do it. So I want to change gears for a second. So one of the big leaps for everyone to do is we talked a little bit about mindset, but if you've never worked with a fractional, like I think fractional CFOs is probably more common, right? Because you're going to hire in your mind your accountant or your CPA. He looks at your books every quarter,
yeah,
and
I mean,
that's fractional CFO mind or whatever. But
usually it's a CFO or a CMO. The CFO is because you're trying to figure out your money or balance your money and get that straight, or you've got investors that or somebody else's money that you're using, and so you want to stay on point with that. The CMO is because you need marketing level, but you need it at a higher level. Not the marketing manager that you can hire some local person, but you want someone that's strategic, that's looking at brand, and that's really looking at like market penetration. So both of those are usually the first two that people go for. So the fractional COO, we're like the less sexy of the two.
right. But as an entrepreneur who I mean, so I do have a financial advisor. We have a CPA that looks at our books. Now we manage the bejesus out of our business. So unlike a lot of people, we know project costs, and so only because I've kind of been there before, and I know what kind of business I'm trying to build. So that financial control is incredibly important. So that's been kind of where we're at. But where a lot of us have these gaps, right? We're excited entrepreneurs, and this operational stuff, this CO stuff, like is definitely a challenge. So
Yeah.
where should people start? So if they were so one is okay, you got a mindset, got to hire someone for help. So obviously, so where do you start thinking about, like, how do you start quantifying like what I could get help with? Because we don't know what we don't know, right?
Yeah.
So in
Well,
this in the minds of a busy home service contractor, got 3 trucks, 8 guys out 5 days a week running all over the place. So what are some of the things that they can think about to help recharge how they're doing their business?
I'm smiling and laughing right now because I just had this conversation with somebody else, and they're like, how do I know like when to refer you, or like what's the referral? And it's the statement usually is, "Oh, it sounds like everything's kind of a mess in business and you need help. I know a guy, like talk to Joshua." Like it's I can come in, take a look at what's going on. I liken it to like the bus that's on fire and the wheels are coming off. Great, let's put me on the bus and like let me help you put out the fires. Let me help you get the wheels secured. So I think kind of like how or why to connect. If you're in your business and you feel like it should be easier, like why is this so hard? And you see other businesses that are running like quote smoother or less friction, that's definitely a place where you definitely need some help. And I actually do strongly recommend that you do a fractional engagement to begin with, because having somebody in your space full time trying to suck your brain out and execute for you, it's just too much. I think doing a fractional engagement is helpful. And I think you can look at consultants, but consultants usually give you to-do lists. And so they'll check in with you. They'll give you a bunch of things to do. They'll call you a couple weeks later. Hey, did you get these things done? Why didn't you get them done? And it becomes too much of a strategy session. I think what you need is a fractional operations person that will actually step in with you. So Bryan and I, we've had conversations like, okay, what does this look like? Bryan kind of gives me an overview. Then we start trying to put down some brass tacks, and we realize, oh, we're missing floorboards and we're missing bigger components. So
Right.
then I can ask for those and I can start building those in. We've also talked about some employee challenges. We've talked about, other components of dealing with clients. So from an operational standpoint, I can give some insight and some feedback and kind of walk along with you. So it's not
Right.
me telling you what to do, like, hey, good luck, here's a list. It's us working together. So
Yeah, that is a huge difference, right? Because it's not a coaching. What's preventing you from growing the business you need, right? The Socratic method, which are incredibly having coaches in your life is incredibly important. But
definitely.
when it comes to okay, why are we late on every project, or why are we getting yelled at for the same thing all the time, right? So you can start to think about identifying these flashpoints. I can tell you how we work, right? I'll be honest how we work. So Joshua and I meet weekly, and then sometimes we have in betweens, and each week we have a goal to fix one problem. We obviously share some wins and some other stuff. We want to find one problem that we can identify and then figure out how we can fix it. And quite honestly, a lot of times it might take 3 months to fix, but we can build a roadmap in 30 or 45 minutes on all the things we need to do. And then we actually get together on a regular basis. How are we doing? Where are we stuck? Because I'm still running my business. So
Yeah.
there's other stuff that's still happening, but having a resource to document that process, right? I will not be the first entrepreneur who's not good at writing things down and doing other stuff, right? So I'm using, and then one of my podcasts, I'll probably send you a YouTube video because I'm going to record some visualizations of how I help organize some things in my world. It'll be my
Yeah.
project management tools, how I put stuff in, how I manage it, right? So that's going to be, I think, just kind
I
of an
mean,
extra.
just even you getting that iPad, like it was a
Right.
big
Yeah, you guys
moment.
can't see this, but I'm showing Joshua like I'm writing notes while we're taking it, and I've given up 20 notebooks for my iPad, and I can go in and look and see in a conversation that I had with him 3 months ago. Remember we were talking about this? We've been talking about these 5 components of my business for a year. I said, remember those things? We just keep coming back to the same 5 things. We just got to go with it. And
Well,
there's a pretty good chance the stuff you started doing 2 or 3 years ago is where that opportunity is where your business needs to be.
right. And you usually, I mean, I am very much of the mindset that the person that's in the entrepreneurship seat, they, at the core of who they are, like they know what they need to do. Like it's not yes, there's knowledge gaps in some areas, but for the most part, it's like, oh, I've got this idea, or this would be really great to do. But then the day-to-day of the work, right, keeps you from doing that. So for yourself, having that iPad, like one, you're putting all your notes in the same place. That you have one source of truth for those ideas and for those concepts. And so that was something that, through I believe through our conversation, you eventually got to a place where you're like, I think I need this. I was like, yeah,
And
that's
I
great.
it was expensive, and I'm like, I got the world's most expensive notebook because all I do is write on it and watch movies on airplanes, right?
Right, right.
But now, because I love tools, so now I can take literally components. So I'm going to say right now, I wrote down business broker. We need to have some business brokers on the podcast to talk about the importance of having systems so you can sell your business or buy other ones, right? So I wrote that down, I clipped it, and I sent it to my project management all while we were sitting. So I got a little note that my assistant's going to say, "Oh, what's this for?" And I'm going to tell her on my stand up, "Hey, we need to put business brokers on my podcast. Let's go I know 5 of them. Let's contact 3 of them and see who wants to be on the podcast."
Well, that's great.
So I mean, you can do real time stuff. It doesn't have to be super. I mean, everyone. I mean, I like tech. You don't need to be techie, but you have to embrace the understanding of how to use it as a weapon, and that doesn't mean throwing your laptop at your employees.
But you did buy, yeah, I would argue that that's an asset, and that thing has probably actually made you money now at this
Oh,
point.
no doubt, no
Yeah.
doubt.
So
Oh,
I
no
think
doubt.
from an operations standpoint, identifying those key things that are choke points, help to eliminate those, and then turn those into opportunities for better production or for better facilitation of the whole process, right? Because it's not just about, okay, the day-to-day work, yes. If you're a roofer, a plumber, interior designer, I've worked with so many different types of businesses. It's kind of a framework that they all kind of fall onto. Definitely those frameworks look a little bit different based on industry, but the mechanics are still kind of there, right? Like a car, you need wheels, you need steering, you need motion, you need gas, you need these kind of components. So same thing operationally. So for myself, coming into your business, learning how you do things, how you prefer, how you ideate, create, and manage, then I know where to fill in those gaps. Or I could tell you, hey, by the way, Bryan, you're really good at this, but that managing those people are staying on top of those tasks. Let's create a system that is easy for you to check in on and manage your business without you having to reinvent the wheel every time you want to go look at something. So,
Yep.
so like,
And
you
I
know,
want to unpack something. I had an idea. I want to unpack something. So we talk about the, I just, while he was talking about that. So let's just talk about one unique thing. So everyone captures business information differently, right? Some people have sticky notes. Some people type things in the CRM. Some people just have it all in their brain and hope for the best. I have for the last 25 years, I've used journals. I've always written books. I typically go through about a book a year. And what I do is I just write in the corner the date, who I'm talking to, and I just scribble down. And because it's been proven that your brain is more connected to your thoughts if you handwrite something as opposed to typing it. Typing's a mechanical thing
yeah,
that, at least as of now, people don't do that. So I don't even know how many I have. I probably have 100 notebooks. I can tell you my first notebook that I have was in October 25th of 2022, and I spoke to I talked to a post-COVID culture issues for meeting people about a guy that's a train the trainer in HR, and they create cultured systems for businesses, and it looks like they do a lot of business with banks. So
yeah,
only reason I know that is because I literally looked at my notes from my meeting that I had 3 years ago.
that's
And
awesome.
so you think about this human state. Now I'm sure I could OCR it and do other stuff with it, but I can go back to those notes and put myself back in that place. So for me, that's an example of a system that works for me,
Yeah.
right? That doesn't work for everybody, but it works for me, right? So and I've I've shared it with people. They can choose to use it or not. But I can tell you my mastermind notes are here. So every time I go to my quarterly mastermind, I look at what I said last time. And then of late, I've really worked on connecting my information gathering engine, which is a piece of paper, and then deploying it to people I need to. So I can email a note to somebody. I can send a draw sketch and send it to a graphic artist. I can say, hey, here's the process flow. Here's how I think this should work. I can give it to Joshua. We can map it out and do a process flow. So, however you work, right? Just fine by working with people with interesting perspectives, it gives you opportunities to do more stuff, right?
And I think
Because
that's,
I use a paper and a pencil.
yeah, and I think that's where having an operations person that can understand how you work and keep you working in your best, but refine that and build systems that, enhance what you're doing. I think that's important. So,
Yep.
so I know you originally asked the question like, how do you know when you need somebody? So I think one is when you have outside people asking, hey, do you need help? Or like you're spending a lot of time doing this. You seem really frustrated, or you seem like, you know, there's just something you're not excited about your job, or there's some outside person that recognizes that. I'm gonna pick on you for half a second because that's how
Really?
that's how we got connected was I actually met your wife and she was like, my husband's this really great entrepreneur. He's a really smart guy. He's spinning his wheels a little bit and he kind of needs some help. And I think you can do something for him. Like, can you just talk to him and see if there's a connection there? And so we
And then
met.
I said my hair's on fire, which is funny because if you know me, I don't have any hair. And we started out slow, then we got fast, then we went slow again, right? So there's an ebb and flow in every business relationship of how to do that. But Joshua's part of my team. Like here's the interesting part. He'll hold me accountable because still have to talk to people. He'll yell at me in a nice way. So
Yeah,
he'll say, I told you so.
yeah,
Um, I'll yell at him by me because he wants to make everything too complicated. I want to make everything too simple. So there's definitely an opportunity for balance, right? Every operator. So if you think about every kind of business duo on the planet, there's always someone you don't see, right? So Joshua tends to be that guy for me, right? But there are lots of other, no one knew Charlie Monge's name before they knew Warren Buffett before they knew Charlie's name, right? So I just learned that the Rockefeller family had the Flaglers behind them. Henry Flagler was the operator behind the Rockefellers.
nice. Yeah,
So like I said, this is not a new concept, right? So everyone has complementary skills behind them. So don't be afraid to get fractional help because you may need full time help, and that's fine, right?
yeah,
But by building on a good foundation, you can do that. So
yeah.
cool. That's cool. So all right. So we've got a mindset. We want to give up something. We've got some ideas on what to think about, and we talked about intellectual property. I don't want to go bananas on this. So if I wanted to, so what are some resources outside of getting hold of you? So kind of before they get a hold of someone like you, what are some? I know you love books, right? So let's talk about some books and resources that you should listen to, get a podcast, get an audiobook, whatever. There's some amazing resources. And before you jump in, I'm going to say one that changed my life, which was the E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. Super simple book. That is the simplest book about systems. They don't tell you crap about how to build systems. They just tell you if you just want to grow your business, you can't bake more pies. Right. That's all I remember about. And I remember how that book fundamentally changed the way I thought about it about 20 years ago. I sat in an airport, like almost in tears, going, what am I doing? Why am I working for the man doing this high level consulting, teaching these people all these sales techniques? Like, I need to help more people. And
Yeah.
so I realized that I didn't know I had built systems in previous businesses. I was just solving a pain problem. I was trying to just keep everybody busy. And so that for me was a huge game changer. We've talked about that in other episodes, but and go ahead and share some of those. And for those of you listening and driving, these will be in the show notes.
Yeah.
So you won't have to worry about finding them and writing them down while you're driving to your next job.
Um, so I think the first book that I would recommend if you want to like dip your toe in trying to get out of your business or trying to get someone else to help you, I'd start off with Brian Tracy's Focal Point. It's a great way of just kind of identifying what you're really good at, identifying like the value that you're providing, like why, how and why you should spend your time and what you should consider. This is a little bit more for like service-based businesses. So if you're in a service-based business and you're looking at how do you maximize that or multiply that, I think that's a good one. The other one is Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. It's great if you are 100% convinced that nobody can do what you can do, fine, read this book and take all the stuff that the work that you do that you don't want to do, that you shouldn't be doing, that you know you shouldn't be like responding to all these emails or deleting things or formatting or copying, like all that work. Yeah, you got to get that to someone else. And that's a low risk way to hire somebody else to get them to do those tasks.
Wait right there. There's a great tab. We talk 80%. What is it? If someone can do something 80% better, more than what do they do? If they can do something 80%,
80% done by someone else is 100% awesome.
awesome. Yeah. So realize that there's a lot of things in your business. They may not be able to do everything, but if they can take 3/4 of it and a little off your
Yeah.
plate, that's 100% awesome. And that's a really good way to think about it. Instead of saying they can't take it across the finish line, they can say, man, you took it this far and I don't have to do that. Because you can teach them how to get across the finish line.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you can get people at a quarter of what your hourly rate is, or even less, then if it took them
Right.
2 hours, you still make money. So, and then the other one that I'm going to recommend, Brian knows I've got like a whole stack of books, so this is
I
this is
know we're gonna limit you in the book thing.
the last one is it's called Traction. It's by Gino Wickman. It's part of what they call the EOS system, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. It's a great framework for anyone that's got a team of probably about 5 people plus. It talks about setting up job descriptions and org charts and uh, outlining key expectations. It also has a way to run a leadership meeting. You know, sometimes you sit in meetings and you're talking forever and it doesn't get anywhere. So these meetings, this format will help you kind of structure it in a way that you're dealing with your issues, you're constantly pushing forward, erring on the side of action and keeping the business moving forward. It also breaks down it has a way to break down your annual goal, or sorry, describe your annual goals and then break them down into quarters. And so then that way, you know, you're not trying to do this big radical change today, like, you know, you read this book and then tomorrow you're doing this whole new thing. It's like incremental changes because you have a bigger vision and it's broken down into smaller pieces.
I have a friend in a mastermind where his staff hates when he goes to masterminds because he comes home with things that they should be doing that they're not doing. And I found out that literally it's that there's another person in the office who says, yeah, we'll do this for a little while, and then I'll just submarine it, come below it, and blow it out of the water. Right. So you realize you probably have someone in your business doing that to you. And as the CEO and the owner, you need to take that person, you need to sink them because you're the boss, right? So I've actually had that happen to us, and I'm going, and then we're together. He's like, "Why did we stop doing this?" I'm like, "Because you got a submarine with a set of torpedoes that anything that takes longer than 5 minutes and takes longer than 3 weeks to get done, they want nothing to do with it." So,
Yeah. Well, and you know, it's everybody's looking for silver bullets, or they're looking for ways to kind of like, oh, if I just had this one thing. And I think the reality is, there's a little more discipline and a little more structure that's needed with that. So um, you've got great ideas, and I think, we the implementation, people get excited to implement, and then they forget why they're doing it. And there's sometimes some of the follow-up isn't there, and at times, I'm not saying you, but just in businesses in general, right? So CEO, you had a slow season, you start implementing some changes, you've got some structure, things get busy, and all of a sudden all that new stuff kind of falls out the windows. Everybody regresses back to that previous level of what they were doing.
And having an outsider saying, well, why are we not, they're questioning me as leader, right? Saying, why are we not, why do we stop doing this? And all of a sudden I'm going, wait, why do this happened to us recently, right? So we put systems in place 9 months ago, a year ago, and then all of a sudden, like, we're doing an audit and going, why did we stop doing this? Well, just because no one yelled at you didn't mean it was the wrong thing to do, like the thing to do, right? So that's just like, you know,
Yeah.
your job as, as part of us as leadership is to encourage people to grow, not stop doing things until they get yelled at, right? That's not growth. That's definitely the stick, not the carrot. So
And I think one last thing I just want to throw in there about the fractional COO thing. I care about your business as much as I care about mine, because my business is taking care of your business. And so the conversations that we have, like, we don't share that with the staff, and I don't talk to you the same way as an employee. I'm here as, someone that's experienced in business, that understands flow and mechanics and how those elements work. And so the advice that I give you, it's like, hey, man, Bryan, I know you're busy, you got 1,000 things, but like, these are things that we need for the business for it to grow. How are you doing on that? Or what can I do to help you kind of maybe run ahead of you a little bit and clear the path for you so you can get this done? And that's a different relationship than a consultant or a vendor that you're hiring to execute a particular task.
yeah, very interesting. And actually, I'll take that from the other side of the equation is that if you have staff they're going to be resistant, right? So let's just say you have an office manager, right? They're going to be like, I don't need any help. Yeah, they do, right? They don't have vision into the things that Joshua or other people that are fractional COOs do. They're going to see things and provide you access to growth for them. And if they do it right, it gives them an unbelievable opportunity to learn. Like I tell my team, I'm honest in saying you're getting a PhD in this stuff. If you choose to participate, you're gonna have unbelievable one. You're gonna learn a ton, and you're gonna have an unbelievable skill set. And someone say, well, why would you do that? They would leave. And my response to that is, God forbid if I don't train them and they stay. Right. So, I want to surround myself with A players, right? So if I can't, if I need to turn them into an A player and there's some gaps in the process because they don't necessarily know how to document the 10 steps to doing X, you can find out that you can do these things in hours, not weeks or months, right? By having someone who's been there before and then having someone holding you accountable to get it done. And then showing you the framework so that it makes a ton of sense so that when the next person comes to do that task, follow up on a job. Hey, we always follow up 2 days after we've left the job. We speak to the owner to make sure that somebody has contacted them to make sure that A, we did a good job, and B, if there's any problems, here's my cell phone number to call me back to stop any bad reviews or stop any of the bad stuff because they're going to complain and other stuff. So
Yeah.
all right. Awesome stuff. So I don't want to, I think, Joshua, I'd like to have you back. I think we should dig into just the project management basics. I think it'll be a fun, but let's just talk about kind of project management 101, because that's kind of a voodoo. Like that's a lot of people think that operations is project management and it's like some bad thing. Like it's not a bad thing. It's a good
But
thing.
we're here to like force everybody like one way to do things. Yeah.
No, so I think we should talk about kind of fundamentals of project management as it relates to kind of these home services. What can you simply um, and then maybe I'll have you and Pam on because Pam can talk about how because she implements differently than I do, right? We both run home service businesses. And you work with or have worked with both of us. You can kind of Pam's my wife. So in case you don't want to know who that is, I've mentioned her in other episodes. Pam Durkin is also an interior designer and interior design coach. She has amazing little business.
I do have to
And,
say, you guys do have very different mindsets. So the fact that you guys, I mean, it's fascinating. I love it.
and so the funny thing is we both use project management and our tools we don't even use the same tool. And there's a reason why, because
Yeah.
we're wired different, right?
That
Um, but it's we're very, very different. And when you hear us, and Pam will be the first one to tell you, I think Pam was the one that told you that I am a tornado inside of a hurricane. I believe that's what she said to somebody. And that is true. All right. So Joshua, how can we find out more information about you, and what resources can you share with the audience that you would like to?
Yeah, so check out my website. It's thinkadaptbuild.com. If you head over there, now I got now I have a to-do list. I will actually make a link specific for this podcast. So if
And we'll
we
put that link in the show notes so that you have
yeah,
those. You don't need to bother writing those down.
so if you hit that link, then what we'll do is we'll have a special little I need to capture a little information about you, and I'll actually show you the service roadmap. It's a framework that you can look at if you want to like quickly diagnose how your business is doing and where you want to pay attention. If you can answer a few questions and I can walk you through it, you can do it yourself, and then it'll help you quickly identify some choke points that you can start trying to focus on if you want to kind of do that yourself. So
And you could insert choke points to "this is on fire" at any point.
yeah,
So let's
like
be real.
yeah, this is actually probably a bigger problem than you think it is. But anyway, it'll be 30 minutes. It'll be totally free, no obligation, other than, I'll have your email address. So thank you for that. But I want to help people, and I think this is a great tool, just like Bryan's podcast. So I'm excited to be a part of this, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to offer out a free tool. So
All right. So anyway, thanks everybody for listening to another amazing episode of the Driveway Marketing Podcast. Who thought we were going to talk about SEO? Psych. This is about the psychology of taking your business from kind of, like I said, from the pickup truck to the Maybach or whatever it is, right? So we want to give you the tools to get to the business, have the business you want, and not the business you have. Thanks everyone for listening, and see you guys on the next episode.